Hello, I'm Paul Perrello, and welcome again to the Philly Factor. Well, February is Black History Month, and in celebration of Black History Month, we're going to focus our program on the historic house in Philadelphia. Now, this house, many people may think they know where it is. They may think they know a little bit something about the house, but really we're going to dive deep into the history of the Belmont Mansion. Belmont Mansion is one of those iconic structures in Fairmount Park. Many of you may have visited the home. It's an 18th century home. The mansion represents one of the finest examples of Palladian architecture in the United States. And yet, how many people really know what happened at Belmont Mansion? Why is it a historic building? What was its role in the celebration of the founding of the United States and its role in the Civil War era of the United States? Well, here to discuss the Belmont Mansion and all the great works that they're doing at the Belmont Mansion today is Janice Sykes-Ross, director of Belmont Mansion. And Janice, I want to thank you for being with us here on the program.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I've heard of Belmont Mansion. They'll at least say they've heard of Belmont Mansion. Some people may have visited Belmont Mansion. But I think if you were to press them and say, okay, what's so historically significant about Belmont Mansion, they would say, well, it's one of those historic buildings, and they may not know much more beyond that. So let's go back to the colonial period of the United States, because Belmont Mansion played host to some of the founding fathers back in the day.
It was one of those homes that when Williams Peters from London, he was a loyalist. And so when the whole revolutionary talk of the revolution and all of that started, he ended up going back to London, back to England. But his home was built in the Palladian style, as you said, because he wanted it to be the type of place where people could come and socialize and just feel peace there, lots of food, lots of merriment. And that was really kind of the culture of the mansion. And so Thomas Jefferson, Washington, Adams, they all dined there.
And for the founding fathers who were busy at work in what we consider today Old City, down at the State House, Independence Hall, this was sort of like a retreat, I guess, for them to get out of the city at that point and to travel out to this countryside to sort of relax and kick back from all the daily tasks of what was going on.
Exactly. It was the kind of place where they could come. They could just, be very relaxed. It was serenity there. There was always like a breeze because it's the highest peak, as we know, in Fairmount Park. And so you still could see the city, but you were still kind of removed from it. So it was this very relaxed atmosphere that went on there. And that, till today, that's still kind of the culture of the mansion, is the place for fun, merriment, weddings, and really the most exquisite view of the city.
Yeah, you yourself told me before the show that you actually got married, had your wedding there at Belmont Mansion.
I did.
And that's how you sort of, I hate to say, got sucked into the Belmont Mansion, but it's hard not to fall in love with the place because of A, the historic setting that it's in, but really you could have your wedding there and you're not only surrounded by history, but just an enormous view of your surroundings.
Exactly, and just in the summertime and all the gardening that's there. And that again was one of the things that the William Peters and his family brought, is they were known for experimental gardening and herbs, and so the food was being cooked with things out of his garden that was grown right there. So the whole agricultural thing was part of their
and so are those gardens actually maintained today?
We are doing different things with them, but some of the gardening, the aspect of gardening is still going to be there. Exactly, yeah.
We talk about, oh yeah, I know where Belmont Mansion is, or I think I know where Belmont Mansion is located. So can you sort of give us an idea where in Fairmount Park is Belmont Mansion?
So Belmont Mansion is at the plateau.
Okay.
So if you've heard of Will Smith, and most people have, and he talked about West Philadelphia born and raised, and in the summertime, how they were on the basketball courts. So Belmont Mansion was right, the plateau was right exactly where he was talking about. And the mansion literally sits right behind the plateau on the highest peak.
The mansion is is listed, I should say, on the Philadelphia Registry of Historic Places.
Yes.
Which sort of shows the importance that this building has had since the early days. But what a lot of people, they may understand and respect and comprehend its role in the colonial days. But one thing that is amazing is the role that Belmont Mansion had during the Civil War, because it was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
It was one of the major stops on the Underground Railroad. And that was one of the things that Audrey Johnson Thornton, who was our founder, she discovered, if you would, Belmont Mansion in 1986, and discovered all of the letters and the history and the role that the Peters family played in the Underground Railroad as well. And then their indentured slave, which was Cornelia Wells, how instrumental she was. If you would, she was like a Harriet Tubman for the Belmont Mansion area, and how instrumental she was in helping runaways and escapes find this place. So while there was merriment and all of this going on in the mansion, there was also a safe haven for runaways as well going on in the attic of the Belmont Mansion.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
That's
tremendous
fascinating.
amount of history there, tremendous.
So when you said she found these letters, I mean, were these letters in a box, in the attic, or stored in the basement? I mean, because it would seem that perhaps when you said, you know, she discovered this, we weren't really paying attention to the story of the Underground Railroad in Philadelphia back then like we should have been. So how did she come upon these letters?
Well, she came upon the mansion itself, which was in a very dilapidated
So
state.
that's what I was going to say. The house was there. What, nobody paid attention to the house?
Nobody paid attention to the house. The house was about to be demolished. It was about to be a parking lot, is what I'm told. And so her and the American Women's Heritage Society, if you can think back then, here's this African-American woman, stopped the bulldozers, stopped the construction that was about to be tearing all this history down, did their research and discovered not only was this a place where our forefathers came and was, and all the history from a revolutionary standpoint, but also that it was a site for the Underground Railroad. And so now the American Women's Heritage Society is really the governing component of the mansion. And so we, on a daily basis, just keep adding to the story and making sure that the mansion and our story is still being told.
That's fascinating work. It really is. And to think that it almost was demolished is remarkable, that one woman was able to not necessarily stand in front of the bulldozers, but she pretty much put up a fight to keep this building going, and then to ultimately tell the story of not only the colonial days, but the pivotal role that the mansion played during the Civil War.
Exactly.
It's amazing. I know with Black History Month, there are a number of events that are going to be coming up at the Belmont Mansion, which we'll talk about here in a moment during Black History Month. But we should also mention that people could actually rent the home or the property for events if they want. And the reason why I bring this up is that that is a revenue stream for the mission of the mansion.
Exactly.
Because you're not, I don't know, you're not getting any federal dollars because you're not on any federal registry. I don't know if the city is providing any funding, but the events that are staged there, whether it's a wedding or a party, helps you and the women's group.
Right, American Women's Heritage Society.
Right.
It really, the events that are happening, whether it be our membership, through our membership, we have organizations that meet there on a monthly basis. So, and we also have the events that you talked about, the weddings and, you know, anniversaries and those type of things, which really sustains the mansion. That's our financial stream to keep it going, as well as our, you know, really having tours and people coming through and to build up the educational part of it. So these are the areas, these are the only areas of funding that we have at this point.
So back in, I think you said the 1980s, when
1986.
When the building was about ready to be demolished, destroyed, the structure itself was in pretty poor condition because no one was taking care of it. Lo and behold, this discovery is made. Did anybody realize back in 1986 the historical significance of this home, or was it like just opening the door and like to Pandora's box and saying, you can't believe all of the beauty and the gems and the treasures that are here?
I think that's exactly what happened. You know, it's once you started to uncover the story,
There's something flying around in here.
and once everything started to open up, the letters that were, as I said, that she found and that were uncovered were letters that were written because Richard Peters was also a judge, judicial judge in Pennsylvania. And so he was really involved in some of the laws that were changed for Pennsylvania, especially when it came to slavery and all of the letters that were written to abolish slavery, and how the Peters family were the only non-Quakers that were abolitionists in Pennsylvania at that time. So all of these things just started to evolve. You know, as you said, it's probably like a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
You know, and then so it is what it is today in terms of, and even today there's still more that we're uncovering.
Yeah.
You know.
I want to talk about some of the programs that you have at the Belmont Mansion for Black History Month, because these are really programs that people can go online and they can find out more information. But I guess any organization is always looking at how they can reinterpret or retell the story of what took place here. So I know one of the first programs, From Africa to Slavery to Freedom, is an interactive historical tour of the Belmont Mansion. So can we talk a little bit about there, people that come out and participate in this program, what could they expect?
So this was a collaboration. This was actually, and this is something that, again, we feel like Miss Audrey is still guiding us from above, is one of the women with GS Enterprises Performances had met Miss Audrey years ago, and they had talked about doing a collaboration together. And here we are, fast forward, you know, the 20th century now, 2020, and it's happening. It's coming to fruition. So they are an organization where they put on live performances, and they primarily study ancient Egypt and Africa. And so it's a Nubian entertainment is the name of the museum, and they travel all over to New York, down south, everywhere. And so they're coming to the Belmont Mansion the month of February, and we're actually transforming our ballroom into Africa.
Wow.
So as you come into the door, you'll go into ancient Egypt and Africa, because remember, a lot of Africa is Egypt and vice versa. And so we'll talk about the foods that were commonly produced there. We'll talk about things that were happening, the different tribes and the different kings and queens, and you'll actually get to meet them and know them. And then from there, you'll travel on our continued journey into the slave ship. And that is where we're collaborating with Lest We Forget Slavery Museum, which is right here in Germantown. And the museum produces shackles and a lot of the irons and coils and things that were used as punishment for the enslaved. And so those will be produced, as well as a replica of the slave ship itself. So it's pretty traumatic.
Yeah, it sort of takes us back even before,
Exactly.
you know, the slave trade here in the United States.
Exactly.
Really back to the beginning, if you will.
Right, and I think we have a lot of interest from school children that are going to be coming from different schools in the area and outside of the area, in the suburbs. And I think this is the story that also needs to be told. What we were before slavery.
Sure.
How did it begin? Where did it start? And it started there.
Yeah.
And how a people can be transformed from a king or a queen into this very subservient, horrible circumstance in life.
Absolutely.
And then from there into America, and then as a runaway, we're actually going to have people reenacting, and the attendees reenacting what it was like to run away as a slave, and some of the codes that were used along the Underground Railroad, so that you knew that this was a safe house and this was a place to be.
Yeah. I like on your website, it says, learn about American history from the house that lived it. Because really, when you talk about, you know, sometimes we think of, well, everything took place in the birth and the foundation of this country down an old city.
Right.
But then you look at a house like Belmont Mansion, and there's so much more to be told. There's a whole other, I can't say chapter, but a whole other book that is just waiting to be discovered at
Exactly.
Belmont Mansion.
And also in Germantown. A lot of history there. And this is really where a lot of things were happening. The Safe House meetings, Mother Bethel Church, which was one of the main meeting sites. All of these things were secret. They were coded. They were underground. And sort of an undergirth of history that was happening while, as you said, the main things were happening in Old City and Liberty Bell and all of that. But there's also another story to be told.
Yeah, Janice, how do you come up with these ideas to sort of interpret this, this time, this place, this history that is so vital and so important for people of all colors today? Not just it's Black History Month, but white, Mexican, Asians can sort of come to appreciate as a result of these programs that you're offering.
Well, we have a board. We have our American Women's Heritage Society board, and they're always keeping me in line with making sure that we never lose sight of the mission.
Sure.
While it's great to have these wonderful events and all of that, but the mission is about the history and it's about the museum. So these types of programs are right in line. And as you said, especially with now, things that are going on right now in this country, as well as the Harriet movie that was released in November.
Yeah.
And a lot of controversy about that. But again, a lot of people came to the mansion to understand, let me understand if this movie was accurate, let me understand some historic content to go with that.
Yeah, and while the movie sort of shed new light on Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
Sometimes Hollywood takes creative license in order to tell a story to make it more compelling or perhaps less compelling or
Entertaining.
Entertaining. That's really
Yeah.
what it is. But again, you can come to the house, the Belmont Mansion, and find out for yourself. By touring the house. You don't have to necessarily come out to one of these programs that we're talking here, but there are regular tours that are also conducted of the mansion. Yeah,
the mansion is open Tuesday through Friday. You don't need an appointment. You can come in, except during these programs, special program times. And the tour itself is self-guided, but we're there to always guide you and offer any assistance in questioning. We also are going to be doing an R.G. Johnson Thornton library, which will have a lot of the books and things that you can understand the life of Harriet Tubman and so many other people that were involved in the freedom struggle.
So someone that's coming to tour Belmont Mansion, give us like an idea of what they could come to expect when they walk in the front door. I mean, what are they going to see? I mean, what are they going to experience?
So the first thing they're going to do is walk in, and we're going to collect your payment, which is not
which is fair.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Which is really, again, just a means to support us. We're going to take you into what we call our orientation room, and there we'll show you a short film. And the film is going to really educate you about what the Underground Railroad was. Was it underground? Was it a railroad? And it was neither. So we really talk to you about that. And it is narrated by Alfred Woodard out of Hollywood, who actually visited the mansion as well.
Wow.
And she talks about the myths and what it was and the movement. And then from there, she leads you into the story of the actual Belmont Mansion. And from there, we leave you from the cottage, which is one of the original structures, into the mansion itself, which has all the ornate kind of displays of the furniture that was used back in the day. Some of the pieces are from Paris. And then the actual ceiling is painted in the replica of the way that it was. And that is something to see because it has all the detail with violins and leaves and seashells and all of that in the painting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. When we talk about the Women's Society, I mean, they're the overseer of Belmont Mansion, and you can only think if there wasn't a group like that, and I'm sure the women are made up of volunteers, and
they are,
and that's so vital because volunteers really are the backbone of any organization. But all these women that are coming together, these volunteers to serve on this board, are part of history themselves because they're having a vital role in maintaining the integrity of this historic building.
Exactly. And their backgrounds are, some of them are in education. They ran museums before. Dr. Naomi Booker, who is our president, owns 2 schools in Philadelphia, Global Leadership Academy. And what they do is we also have an education component called the Docents Program. And we take the young people, we have a camp that we run in the summer, and that teaches our young people about history. And they embody the characters of the Belmont Mansion. So they take on the role of William Peters and Mary, his wife, and Cornelia Wells. And if you come during the summer, they will be there to reenact the characters.
And that's
for you.
That's great to see and great to know. But you also, I guess, have to maintain that storyline because you want to tell an accurate story.
Absolutely.
Because this is history, and some people may not even be aware of what took place at Belmont Mansion, and yet they may come out as part of this program, and it's that aha, eye-opening experience that I didn't know that A, this place existed, and B, this is what was going on at Belmont Mansion.
We get that so many times.
Yeah.
We get that all the time. I never knew it was here. I didn't know what it was. Or like you said, I knew it was here, but I knew it was historic, but I didn't know why.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it all came together. And so thank you for doing this program to really help us reach more people.
I've often said that Philadelphia is this bowl of all these different places, many of which get a lot of attention, and then some that don't really get all the attention that they deserve.
Exactly.
And so Belmont Mansion falls into that latter group because here it is, people, as I said, may have driven by it numerous times. They may have been in Fairmount Park and drove by the house and, gee, I wonder what goes on over there.
Yeah,
And now that hopefully we're able to share some of the great information about Belmont Mansion and all the different programs that'll be coming up. There are different tour dates that will take place in the month of February, which is Black History Month. You could go to the website, which is belmontmansion.org,
Yes.
and they can find all the information about these different programs that they have. And then, of course, when the warmer months come in and we're out of winter, it's just a nice stroll through the park. I mean, you could drive through the park and stop and smell the roses, they say, or at least
Exactly.
experience Belmont Mansion.
Yeah, and one of the gardens that we were talking about, we're going to enhance that, and it's going to be an herb garden that we're including in that. And we have volunteers and a lot of students that are going to be involved in that project as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily think, we think of buildings, we think of artifacts inside buildings, but we don't necessarily think of the grounds outside that are just as important. And if you go back to the integrity of the building back in 1986, it probably looked like a rundown property, waiting for a bulldozer. But the fact that you're having this, this program in the spring with this garden, and to transport people back to a time and an age where people actually grew their own herbs and vegetables and fruits,
Which a lot of people are getting back to now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so it's amazing how our lives just, we go in a circle and history does repeat itself.
Yeah, we have a few minutes left, and so you've been now at the helm of the organization for about a year.
Yes.
So what has been perhaps the most rewarding thing for you in the past year, being in charge or being at the head of Belmont Mansion?
It's really, oh my God, what a great question. It's really been, my background is in hospitality.
Okay.
I was with Hyatt Corporation for 25 years, so I'm coming out of the whole hospitality industry. Is really the educational component, the young people, the docents program, and how by taking on a character of someone like Cornelia Wells, how they're learning public speaking, how they're learning to just be engaged, and most of them want to go into public office.
Wow.
After being a part of this program. So I really feel like through the Belmont Mansion, we're actually birthing a whole new generation of, assembly people, senators, maybe even presidents.
Yeah, well, that's so rewarding and so fulfilling, and you should be commended, you and everyone there at Belmont Mansion and your companion organization, because you are walking the walk and talking the talk. You are right there on the front line, getting the word out about Belmont Mansion and its vital, important role in American history, not just in the colonial days, but even through the Civil War, and even to today.
Yes.
It's so important to learn about what's going on at Belmont Mansion.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Thank you.
I want to thank you for your time.
Oh, I want to thank you.
Oh,
This
my
has been
pleasure.
great.
Thank you. And again, you can find out more information about all of the great events that they're going to be having during Black History Month out at Belmont Mansion. And as their website says, learn about American history from the house that lived it. So again, the website is belmontmansion.org. You can find out more about those programs we talked about earlier in the program, from Africa to slavery to freedom. And you can find out about all of the offerings that they're going to have during the month of February. And of course, they're there year round, so you might want to stop on by and make a visit to Belmont Mansion. For the Philly Factor, I want to thank you so much for tuning into the program. My name's Paul Perrello. We'll see you the next time around.